Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name's Steve and I'm a traditionally published author. Today I'm going to be talking to you about my epic fantasy novels. The first novel, Battle Mage, was published in 2015 by Orbit. This is a version that a friend had made up for me with a copper plate to celebrate the publication, but the traditional cover is this one with a wizard or battle mage on the front cover. Battle Mage tells the story of a world that is being dragged into what is in essence a First World War, and the story is told from three unique perspectives. You have warriors who are fighting on the front lines, who don't know anything other than surviving day to day. You have a princess who's a spy master trying to win the war through espionage and working with the generals who are controlling the battle. And then you have the battle mages. These are the heavy artillery. These are people who have powerful battlefield magic that must fight against each other. And when they start fighting, the warriors get out of the way because it gets messy and loud. So the story has lots of overt magic, has non-human races, and it is part one of the trilogy called The Age of Darkness. The second book in the trilogy, Blood Mage, is quite a different story. It's focused on one city and takes place after the events of the first book. It follows four different characters. One of them is a spy trying to unravel the mystery behind who's trying to kill the queen. There is a prize fighter who gets involved with the local underworld, and there are crime families in this story. There's a young man with an unusual magical ability who's called upon to help out with the powers that be because the city is getting closer and closer to exploding with lots of violence. The fourth character in the book is a young woman who's just trying to do the best with what she can. She's tried her hand at a number of different things and nothing has quite worked out for her. So she brings some humor to the story, which is otherwise quite a dark one, focusing on crime families and a serial killer and espionage. So it brings some levity to the story. Battle Mage was originally published in 2015. Blood Mage came 6 months later in 2016. The third book in the trilogy, Chaos Mage, was also published 6 months later. So within 12 calendar months, the whole trilogy came out and was complete. This trilogy is fairly atypical because characters in the first book move into the background in the second book and then come back in the third book. So you have these people constantly moving back and forth and building on one another. Chaos Mage is quite a different story there again. It is more of a almost post-apocalyptic thriller. It's still set within the same fantasy world, and it focuses on a distant city that has in essence become a bit of a ghost town. Someone is sent to investigate, to find out what's causing the problems, what is haunting the city, attacking people and murdering them, and they can't understand why the city has gone from quite a thriving population to being haunted. Characters from previous novels return and they are sent to investigate the city, find out what's causing the problems and get rid of it. Otherwise the city is going to be written off and just left to rot because of the damage that has happened to it in the war. They want to save it, but if they can't, it'll just be left. In 2017, the first book in my second trilogy, The Age of Dread, was published, and the first book is Magebane. This book takes place 10 years after the events of Battle Mage and what has been called the Battle Mage War. Magic has caused a lot of problems in the world, even though it saved many during the war, and some people blame it for all the evils and say that it is responsible for all of the problems. One man is determined to get rid of all magic, and he believes that the only way to do that is by killing all the existing mages and even those who were born with it. And this typically manifests during the teenage years. Into this world where magic is becoming to be despised, we follow a number of different characters. Old faces return from the first trilogy, but we also have a number of younger characters, some of whom are just coming into their powers, and they are taken to a place called the Red Tower, a wizard school or magic school where they can learn to control their abilities. The problem is, as they look to the future and the idea of leaving the school and graduating, they realize that the world doesn't want them. People are scared of magic, they're afraid of what they can do, and they don't see any of the good or the potential to help people using magic. This trilogy is more of a traditional one because it follows the same characters through all three books, unlike the first trilogy. The second book in the Age of Dread trilogy is called Mage Fall. Magic is still a problem. Events are getting worse. People are blaming battle mages for what they've done. Children are being targeted and hunted, whilst others are trying to protect magic users and show that they can actually be useful to people. But the world is really turning against them. So there's a lot of prejudice, there's a lot of conflict, and the story is now spread out across different cities in different parts of the continent. The third book in the Age of Dread trilogy is called Magebane, and it wraps up the story. It's a little bit difficult to talk about it in relation to the others without spoiling it too much, but I will say that it wraps up the story across all 6 books, characters that we've seen from the first moving in and out of the spotlight feature in this story. It came out in 2019, and at the moment, it marks the end of all stories set within that world, because the next books I'm writing are something completely different. Something I haven't mentioned yet is a novella that I've done, but this is only an ebook and audiobook called Of Gods and Men. And this is a prequel story to everything. So if you're not ready to dive into a whole new trilogy, just want to see what the water's like and test it, you can read the novella and get a flavor for my writing style and the world. So since Battle Mage was published in 2015, I've had 1 audio and ebook novella and 6 completed epic fantasy novels. There are more coming out starting in 2021 from Angry Robot Books, so keep an eye out for that book in the summer. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe to this channel if you want more updates on my books, on writing advice, and also late night talks featuring other writers.